For the week of December 28th, this is what's coming up on CT Examiner Weekly. It's the end of the year edition of the podcast, and we look back on stories that were covered by CT Examiner from across the state by our reporters. I'm your host, Brian Scott Smith, and joining me are reporters Amy Wu, Francesco Uranga, Nick Sambides, and Dan Tepfer. Welcome to you all. Now, 2025 has been quite a year, especially for the news industry. A new administration in the White House and a new way of working that had the media and state and local leaders scrambling to keep up with an ever-changing agenda. It was also a year of great sporting moments and entertainment too. Our reporters covered many different stories across the great state of Connecticut, along with in-depth coverage of the local elections and much more. So now, in no particular order, let's hear from our reporters as they look back at stories from this year. We're going to start with Nick Sambides, who joins us. Nick, tell us about one of your stories.
I guess I have to say the story that I've enjoyed the most as a series of stories would probably be Hamden's financial situation. That's something that came into us very, very quickly, and I got enmeshed in very quickly. And it's gotten a lot of attention from people. The most important thing sometimes as a journalist is to feel like you're making a difference. Hamden's been very good to us.
Talk to us a little bit about some of the Hamden stories that you cover, because like you said, you've covered quite a lot of them. And it's a town that, in the past, really, people haven't heard a lot from.
Right. It's a very, very, very diverse town. There's so many aspects to it that I haven't even gotten to yet. And that's another reason why I like talking about it. It's got several colleges and 4 high schools, 2 of them private. And it's something that it's a great town. And the financial aspect of it is it's like an evolving mystery. You don't know, they don't know precisely where the money is, precisely where the money's gone. Until that comes to clear, everybody's sort of waiting, and people are working diligently all the time. And every time I talk to somebody, I learn something new.
Talk to us a little bit more about that, because you've covered that extensively for CT Examiner about the fact that, there's financial issues in Hamden. There's been a change of administration, and recently started an audit as well, finally, of their finances.
Yeah, the finance audits have actually been underway for a while. They haven't been able to finish them. So they've got a pretty good idea, I think, of where the money is and where it ought to be. And they're facing a situation where they're beginning now to look ahead to what's possible. But the audits themselves probably won't be done. One audit probably won't be done for another month. It's taken much longer than it should. And so people are walking around on, I hate the cliche of it, but pins and needles.
I know Amy's got a question. Amy.
I was wondering, Nick, with the all the financial issues, are they, in terms of hiring, are they looking to kind of extend their financial staff, or what other things are they missing to get their financial health in order?
Good question. It's a very difficult thing because they have a lot of things they can do, but they have to first finish the audits. They have to hire a finance director. The thinking there is, if we hire a finance director, we have somebody who can solve all the problems, and we're not going to hire for him. And so, other than that, everything's in as much of a hiring freeze as you can get.
Nick, thanks for giving us a heads up on that. We're going to move back actually to Amy and hear from one of her stories. So, Amy, what was one of your stories this year that sort of, has resonated with you?
One of the highlights is the seawall in Groton. Sort of the future of it, the current state of it. I mean, right, it's a $14.3 million project right now. There's been a budget overrun, clearly an extensive budget overrun, and the community questioning why is this happening, including elected officials. What I find the most interesting for as we move into 2026 is certainly, will it actually achieve this timeline? I mean, will it actually be completed now in the spring of 2026? And also, as with, a lot of the elected officials, including the Groton City Mayor Jill Rusk, have said that they are really seeking a debrief of this process. of what potentially went wrong, what could go better, with the planning of it, because there were some redesign that cost more money. So we'll actually have to see if the debrief happens and sort of if the city goes into that. And then I think the third part that's rather interesting is whether or not they will get the financing for the remainder of the project, and also to essentially pay back the community investment fund, because there was money that was borrowed from that to work on the project so far.
I know Nick's got a question. Nick?
Is there a lot of economic development that might be poised to expand or occur if the seawall is finished? In West Haven, they had a lot of economic development was able to happen because they had done a seawall and because they were attacking flooding problems. Are there areas where flooding has been chronic?
I mean, that's a really interesting question. I think that the Groton itself is really focused on this climate resilience as part of its sort of economic development, especially as the weather, gets crazier in general. But also in terms of the project itself and the completion of this project, it's a significant, what I would call, project for the town, the city. So I would say that the community itself, is waiting to see if this will be finished at all. Right now the timeline has been extended and the budget has been completely overrun. So if that trajectory continues, I think there's a bit of a loss of faith in terms of what will happen. But if it does happen, I think that there could be a bit of a pivot perhaps in the mindset and perception of the elected officials as well. Yeah, that's a great question.
And I think you also reported previously as well that the new mayor, Jill Rusk, is looking into what happens on this project as well, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Even before she was elected into office, she said that this is a priority, her first 100 days. She wants to begin looking at the process in a debrief, and most importantly, making sure the project actually gets totally completed, from beginning to end. And they're looking at the spring of 2026. So I think that'll be a turning point to see if this actually happens. Yeah.
Well, we look forward to your further reporting on that story. Amy, thanks for that. Dan Tepfer joins us today as well. So, Dan, give us one of your stories that you liked from 2025.
Well, Bridgeport, the state's shining city by the sea, received a lot of tarnish this year with allegations of election fraud. 3 council people and the vice chair of the Democratic Party are charged and awaiting trial on absentee ballot fraud. And both the councilman and the vice chair of the Democratic Party are actually seen on video stuffing absentee ballots, all supporting the reelection of Mayor Joe Ganim, himself a convicted felon, into special ballot boxes. So obviously that's created quite a stir in not just Bridgeport, but the state of Connecticut. Absentee ballot fraud is a big topic nationwide, and unfortunately, it's been going on in Bridgeport for years, depending on who the candidate for mayor is.
Nick's got a question on that.
It seems to be, I mean, I grew up in Connecticut, so, when you wanted corruption, when in doubt, look to Bridgeport. Do you ever see this ever really ending in Bridgeport? I mean, it just seems to be part of the political firmament that somebody's corrupt somewhere.
It is part of the system. I've been covering Bridgeport for more than 45 years. I remember a case back in the 80s where the city attorney was witnessed stuffing absentee ballots into a mailbox right downtown. This is how you win elections in Bridgeport, unfortunately. And nobody really does much about it because the state Democratic Party relies on its largest city for votes.
Yeah.
I understand, though, Dan, isn't Bridgeport still under election monitoring? I had a conversation with the Secretary of the State. I believe they're still under election monitoring, aren't they?
It on and off. They do. They have sent people in to monitor recent elections, but that's mainly at the polls. Absentee ballots are very hard to monitor because, you can't go to everybody's house who's filling out an absentee ballot and make sure that they're the ones filling it out. and then bringing it back in or mailing it back in.
Well, we'll be watching Bridgeport again next year because, of course, there's midterms, so even more election coverage for 2026. Dan, thanks for that. We're going to turn to Francisco Uranga now. Francisco, give us one of your stories that you reported on this year.
Well, Brian, this was a pretty busy year, so there are many stories. But I think one that kind of surprised me was about the dicquat that I know that you have been covering too, and there was a very heated discussion about how to combat hydrilla. So that was a surprising story because I was skeptical at some point. We approached in a way that was different than other outlets.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. I mean, I've covered it as well. And it's been this very, very controversial situation involving this invasive plant in the Connecticut River and in other waterways. But I believe a rap artist down in Norwalk sort of like started to generate some social buzz because they'd found out the state was going to be using this herbicide, which, you know, if not used correctly, like a lot of chemicals, can potentially do more harm than good. And of course, it got everybody buzzing. And then suddenly we're all standing by the Connecticut River. I remember on one day with a lot of local legislators trying to explain to people, yeah, no, actually, we're not trying to poison the Connecticut River.
Well, the thing is, this started with a rapper actually called Chris Webby, that he's from Norwalk, and all of a sudden it became a lot of people involved on this. So at the beginning, we were saying it sounds like he's not the most trustful source, probably. So you will say probably it's just misinformation, but a lot of people was fairly concerned, and we realized that many of the coverage was generally saying, this is a science-based approach. This is not something you should be concerned, but they were maybe not explaining why. So we talked with some scientists from Europe where it's banned the use of dicquat to try to explain how to apply it. And to be fair, probably the U.S. Corps of Engineers are doing a kind of very science-based approach and pretty good job, I would say. But the communication of this was probably somehow problematic, and people didn't trust in what the government mainly was saying.
Yeah, it goes to show the power, obviously, of social media and how quickly influencers can get messages across. And like you said, whether or not that information is accurate or perhaps potentially a little bit misinformed. But the other interesting thing about the use of this chemical is it isn't new. Apparently, Connecticut's been using dicquat for something like about 40 odd years in various different places.
Well, actually, we published a first story about this, and some people say, well, you are saying that it's not being applied, but we have seen signs all over the state. So we say, well, wait a minute, they are not applying for this project, but it has been widely used in the state. So we started asking for records from the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, and they shared with us a lot of forms and the application for permits. And we use some AI-based data analysis to approach to that, and we got that apparently it's like 1 per day. It's approved the application of this kind of herbicide. So yes, it's very common, and probably the project for the U.S. Corps of Engineers is the most careful way to apply it, and they are trying to research on that.
Absolutely, Amy.
Oh, yeah. I'm just curious, Francisco, if I know that there was at least 900 permits issued. Is that increasing the applications for the permits, and I'm just curious why that might be the case.
It's not really increasing. It's just very, it's a very old technique, and they have been applying for decades. The only new thing is that this rapper kind of start, posting things about the use of this, and many people get fairly concerned, I would say, about the use of this product. And we check, because many experts and advocates say, well, we have been discussing this for many years, and now they just appear and start questioning us. And the thing is, if you check, this is not a scientific thing, but if you check the Google Trends application, you can realize that there was a very big spike in Google search. And that shows that probably for the common people. I mean, the general public. This was maybe the first time they heard this product in their life. So this helps spreading the awareness, if you want, about this. Maybe it's not the more scientific way to do this, but it worked.
Absolutely, yeah. Francisco, thanks for that. That was a great story. And again, it's going to be one that's going to be continuing into the new year because this stuff is so invasive and they have to try and find ways, obviously, to control it. So thank you. And we'll let you go, Francisco. Thanks for joining us. And I'm going to go back to Nick now. And so, Nick, give us your second story that resonated with you this year.
I suppose because I'm an old crime reporter, the death of Joe Kane in Milford, the homeless man, burned in an arson. After being assaulted. The story has basically disappeared because, well, I don't really know why. Milford police say that they're still investigating it, but they say nothing else. Someone probably was taken into custody and taken into a psychiatric hospital for evaluation or more than that. And there's no way to know what's going on with it except the police say, keep watching. We're investigating it.
How long's it been going on now? Just remind us a little bit about the story as well.
There was a very large homeless encampment behind Lowe's in Milford. I think it was Lowe's. And it had been there for decades. It was built out almost like a sort of a very crude subdivision. There were huts there that had insulation in them. The people from the hardware store had donated or sold a lot of stuff to them. To the people who lived there, there's anywhere from up to a half dozen people living there at one time. And one day there's a fight between two people. The person who supposedly assaulted Joe as he was sleeping, either broke into his place or was led into his place, assaulted Joe. And a fire broke out immediately after. And the fire killed Joe, and and the police showed up immediately. Supposedly they took somebody into custody, but they don't say so. It's a very strange case because it has been ruled a homicide, but they're investigating. They could be waiting for toxicology. I'm not casting aspersions on the police per se. They could be waiting for toxicology reports. They could be waiting for this person who I believe has been taken into custody or put in a psychiatric hospital to be evaluated. But the investigation continues and nobody knows what happened. And it has been ruled a homicide. That doesn't necessarily mean murder, but it usually does. And so we're all just waiting to see what happens next. It was really sad for me because he's always terrible. There's no such thing as a good homicide. There are always terrible, horrible tragedies. And I got to meet his friends who kept up with him and cared for him and loved him despite him having a terrible addiction that derailed his life. He also was somebody who had a lot of skills. He was a very good carpenter. He was a tree trimmer, tree cutter. And he was a very nice guy in a lot of ways. And it's just something where Connecticut media has a tendency that we go against very strongly, which is stories are written and they're sort of thrown in the trash. It's breaking news. It's a press release. It's written. Please send out a press release. It gets written and then the story disappears. And we don't do that. So I got to know the situation very well, and I enjoy doing that kind of work because again, I think go around the room to all the reporters, and the things they'll tell you is they love a good mystery.
Oh, absolutely.
This is a good mystery.
It's a terrible tragedy, but we're grateful for your reporting on it. And who knows, something might come out of it. I mean, it's often these things, even years after, information trickles out, and we're able to possibly put some pieces together and bring some closure on that. But Nick, thanks for sharing that story. Like we said, it's a sad one, but not all of the stories that we do are good stories. But they all deserve equal amounts of airtime. Amy, I'm going to come back to you for your second story. What do you have for us?
Noank, and what will happen to Noank is a bit of a mystery as well. The what's at stake here is that a Main Street, reconstruction project that where the town is looking to fix up everything from the drainage to the, sidewalks or streets that are buckling and sort of cracked. But, the community is very, very, very concerned and they've been coming out in, standing room only meetings, very concerned that it'll become the next Mystic, especially the next downtown Mystic, with hassles over parking, over traffic, over congestion, and whether there can strike a balance between fixing up a historic, charming seaside village and keeping the community. It's a close knit community there to. And maintaining that. That's why some of the newcomers are actually attracted to Noank. And I spoke to some of the new folks that have moved there from places, including Vermont and New York. They love it there. And then at the same time, kind of fixing up what's needed for public safety. Yeah.
For maybe other people in the state that haven't visited Noank, I mean, it is this quintessentially sort of like shoreline little village. It's not even a town, is it? I mean, it's a village. It is beautiful. It's had hallmark, so like movies filmed there. I mean, it is just a great little place. And I can understand why people are so upset because, like you said in your reporting with standing room only, sort of like public meetings, because some of the stuff that they want to do is quite radical and it really could change the face of that little village, couldn't it?
It could, and it is incredibly cute, and as the residents say, unconventional, quaint. There's also this general store where folks kind of hang out every morning over breakfast and still chit chat. But what's at stake is adding potentially even new sidewalks and changing the looks of the street and the trajectory of the traffic. And folks who are residents living there on Main Street are really concerned that it'll change traffic patterns. Just kind of mess up what they currently have, but at the same time, really worried that the historical aspect of that village will also kind of be stripped down. Although the town is saying that they are really not necessarily adding any more features. There may be some more benches, some more trees. They're going to be using similar material, the same material as they're using now. But yes, there certainly is that concern because Mystic is very close by to Noank, and I think they've seen some of the residents have seen what has happened there. Yeah.
And I think some of the stuff that in your reporting was it either raising or lowering the levels of the roads, and then on some of the sidewalks people would have to it correct step up to, so there's even access issues. I mean, it was all very interesting what they're proposing.
Yeah, right now it is a proposal. I mean, it's a preliminary draft. There is a firm called Wright Pierce that has been doing the project design for it, and they're taking community input. In fact, January 6th is the public hearing in the town of Groton, where folks can go out there and also share their concerns. But yes, the streets that are sloped in some areas and buckling and cracked in certain areas, so they are looking to level it off a bit and also have sidewalks new sidewalks placed there, some of them in front of residents' homes, that would a bit change the parking situation as well. And I think residents are concerned about the sidewalks too, perhaps in having to also be responsible in shoveling. As well. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, it's a great piece of reporting. As you say, January 6th, another public meeting, so we'll be finding out some more details and more reporting on that. But Amy, thanks ever so much for that. We're going to go back to Dan now. Dan's got another great story, which actually we featured fairly recently, but I love the fact that you're bringing this back up because it's such an incredibly unusual story. Dan, just remind us what it is.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that you might hear out of New York City, but Connecticut, it's a little kind of out of place, it seems. And this is a story about Tommy Mara, who was a master car thief and a legitimate Connecticut mobster who died recently while serving consecutive life prison terms. And Mara is going back to the 1980s, ran this huge car thief organization. And when things started to go bad, when the feds started to close in, he started to kill some of his associates. He got and stuffing their bodies in barrels, which he then launched into Bridgeport Harbor.
Nick's got a question on this. Nick,
A question and an observation. The observation first. Every time you speak, at least one of us here, one of the rest of us here, starts to smile uncontrollably because your stories are so cool. They're just amazing. To the characters that you come across, it just drips out of your voice. So the question is, do you have a personal recollection of the guy, a personal encounter with this gentleman that sort of summarizes who he is or was?
I covered Tommy Mara for more than 45 years. I knew him from his first arrests all the way up to his final conviction. I spoke to him hundreds of times. He offered to, during one of his trials here, he said to me, "I'm going to beat this and then I'll buy you a beer at the hotel across the street." He was truly a Bridgeport character, and in many ways, and I hate to say this because he's a cold-blooded killer, could be rather likable.
yeah, I remember you saying in one of the last podcasts.
You had
beers with
Bulger, him. Who people would say, "Oh my God, we stayed over." He was a kind of a funny little short, round guy.
Yeah, I was going to say, you said he didn't really look gangsterish.
No, not in the least.
Are you going to miss him?
Yes, I will say that. Although I've heard from a number of his victims' families, which gives you serious pause. But yeah.
Yeah, no, of course, we should obviously remember the victims. But I mean, like you said, it is such an unusual character. Nick, I think you wanted to add something.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about victims. But that's the joy of a reporter's life, is it's suffused with ambiguity, because you see the human sides of the monsters and you see the monstrous sides of the good people. It really is a wonderful thing to be able to do this for a living. So every time you talk, it's like I just stop and my jaw hits the floor half the time. Because you've seen so much stuff that just who else would get a chance to even notice this,
I suppose. I've interviewed a lot of killers over my time.
Amy.
I'm just curious, what a captivating character, so to speak. So he's dead now. What about, does he have any family?
One of his sons, who was a little angry at the way I portrayed him in my story, because he says, you left out the good side of him. Well,
of course.
I said he was affable.
It is an incredibly great story, and people should go to ctexaminer.com and read it. And it really does lend itself. And Dan, you're a great writer. I think you need to turn this into a Netflix series and get some credit for it.
Big time.
Netflix wants to call. I'm here.
Big time. A novel.
I will be watching that.
A biography.
Thank you, Nick. Though.
Absolutely. So we've come to the end of our end of the year podcast. It's been great talking to all of you. Thank you for sharing some of the many, many stories that you write every year for ctexaminer.com. And so I say thank you to Nick, to Amy, to Francisco, who had to leave us a little bit early, and also Dan. Don't forget, you can read all the stories you've heard today on the digital pages of ctexaminer.com. And also Robin's event calendar is always there as well. And while you're at it, sign up and subscribe as well to make sure you don't miss out on all the week's news and great stories from our reporters. This is CT Examiner Weekly, reporting and supporting what matters. I'm Brian Scott Smith. Happy New Year to everyone here and to all our listeners. And of course, we'll catch you in 2026. Thanks for listening.